This is a prepaid collect call from
Aaron. My whole body's shaking right now.
What happened?
Do you know my temper?
Aris, what's your favorite chewing gum?
Honestly, mine is juicy fruit. I love juicy fruit, but my all-time favorite, because I cannot find this thing anymore. Remember those zebra stripe gum that was like striped like zebras, but it was like blue, green, pink, yellow, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Each one was a different color, and it was the best 5 seconds of your life. That was mine, but I can't find it anymore, so I just chew juicy fruit now. What about you? Is it big league chew, since you're a baseball guy?
Well, I actually will side with you on the juicy fruit. I asked that question mostly because Bubblicious came into play in this episode. As we mentioned pre-show a little bit here, so not a big fan of the cotton candy Bubblicious that Aaron seems attached to. No. So attached to that he decided to wrap his bullets in it, apparently.
Bubblegum and cotton candy maybe it's just because I hate cotton candy and I just hate that flavor, but I just feel like those two worlds should never come together.
I hate cotton candy. I mean, some people will think you're a sociopath after that comment, but not a psychopath, because that's the difference between what makes you Aris Blakeney versus Aaron Hernandez. Now, speaking of Aaron Hernandez, clearly not great at covering up the scene, as we learned in this episode.
Not at all.
Let's see. So we had chewing gum, we had fingerprints, Jordans, Air Jordans on the ground, and, well, of course, Odin Lloyd's dead body just mere miles away from his house in a very secluded area.
Yeah, in previous episode, they were showing that he had problems deleting video footage. They had a blunt right next to the body. So it's like they didn't watch enough like Unsolved Mysteries or First 48 or any other true crime documentaries that kind of teach you how to cover up a crime scene, because they're always like pointing out stuff that people did.
Hell, some CSI Miami might have done him some good. He was in Florida. Should have learned from them. I mostly love CSI Miami for the quick pun at the end, followed by the rising sunglasses.
This isn't going to be good. This isn't going to be good since we're a audio medium, but we can see each other, so just take off the glasses.
You know, like we'll get an animator in here just to draw out that effect right there, just that slight like raise that eyebrows. Yeah, we'll work
find
on
a GIF of CSI Miami where it happens.
Exactly, but this is all about drawing conclusion, drawing the threads that led to the psychosis that led into multiple people's murders by the hands of Aaron Hernandez. And it's interesting how Netflix has taken course to draw these connections, because we mentioned the questions about his sexuality when we reviewed the last episode. Mm-hmm. This one, you can tell Netflix went all in on that, because they brought back his high school quarterback, the one that had that pseudo relationship with Aaron, or according to him, had that pseudo relationship with Aaron. And apparently tattoos make you gay.
I mean, if that's the case, I have almost 2 sleeves. They're still work in progress for tattoo-wise. So I guess I'm covering something up because I have tattoos.
Gotcha. I think it's just you're just trying to make yourself super unattractive, right? So like,
yeah, I'm trying to hide my true identity by getting tattoos.
Yeah, I was listening to that whole segment. I was like, okay, guys, this is a little ridiculous. Do you not hear yourself when you edited this? I mean, this went through multiple interviews. You really pieced this together as the grand conclusion behind not only Aaron Hernandez's hidden sexuality, but the reason he was just out there murdering multiple people.
It was because he was gay. Yeah, and then they even brought in that ex-offensive lineman for the Patriots who is now openly gay, where he was talking about in college he was starting to drink beer, he was starting to chew dip, he was trying to gain as much weight as he possibly could so it could kind of shed himself away from possibly trying to get girls, so people weren't asking why he wasn't dating somebody because he was so ugly, in his own words.
So this episode did also focus a little bit in on his Florida Gator days. And it was interesting, some of the insights to that. Again, I feel like the documentary really jumped the shark on certain points, or I guess you could say really jumped the Florida Gator at certain points. Some of the things they were throwing out there, like trying to blame it on the NCAA and their lack of regard for student athletes. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest NCAA fan in the world. We've mentioned as much on this show before. But let's be real, guys. Urban Meyer wasn't exactly out there supporting Aaron Hernandez's secret life. If he knew about this, Aaron Hernandez would not be allowed to step foot in a Florida Gators facility. And if the NCAA knew about this, I'm rest assured he would not step foot in any college facility. whatsoever.
Oh, definitely not, because they hate that you get a loan for $200 to buy a plane ticket for your girlfriend to fly to a game. If they get mad at that, of course they're going to get mad at you killing two people. So they're trying to blame the NCAA. Looks like they were trying to blame it on Toradol. They're trying to blame it on CTE. They're trying to blame it on the fact that he could have been gay or might have been gay or possibly gay or bisexual, whatever they're trying to frame it as. So it just seems like they're just throwing the kitchen sink at him and trying to see what sticks in the lexicon of, the people watching this, whatever they draw their own conclusions.
I mean, we mentioned they want to sensationalize this. They want to make it as grand as possible. It's for entertainment. That's what this documentary is ultimately made for. But they definitely did leak the shark, and they paid little mind to what may have actually been the real issue, because this was the episode where they did finally talk about CTE a little bit. Like, you see those big hits he was taking from like Ray Lewis or some other guys in the big playoff games, and those seem more likely when we consider what we know about the story, that when they finally picked apart his brain, it was horrible. Some of the results were like just jello just jiggling around in his head. And
yeah, I think it was a kind of a combo of the CTE, the rough upbringing, because you kind of get into that where he's fighting with his mom over the phone while he's in prison, that home life, that kind of culture that he was surrounding himself with some of they said one of the guys he was hanging out with was a drug kingpin.
Yeah.
So just kind of the people he was surrounding himself with, because he was so close to home. He was so used to kind of that population before he moved down to Florida, and now he had easy access to it. That plus the brain injury, which we'll probably get into more in episode 3, which I hope we get into. We haven't watched that one just yet, but it seems like that's the main cause of this, not the whole fact that he was questioning his sexuality or was gay or bi, or the fact that he took Toradol in college to relieve like a knee pain or a shoulder pain or whatever pain he had.
When they do make this connection between his sexuality, what are they saying? Like a bunch of closeted people just go out there randomly, sporadically kill people every now and then? They just snap? I think that's just such a ridiculous connection that I think most LGBTQ communities would frown upon when they really break it down. And as far as some of the other stuff, so like going back to the CTE thing, some interesting names they brought out. So Chris Borland, he was a former 49ers linebacker, played one season with us and retired because he was concerned about brain injuries. And that is relevant now when we consider like Luke Kuechly retired early, Patrick Willis retired early, 2 Hall of Fame linebackers eventually. Mm-hmm. Hell, even Telvin Smith, who was another promising young linebacker, retired early. Tight end, linebacker, those guys take some hits because, tight end, you're battling in the trenches. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you're the bigger guy on the field, so they do have to do a little bit extra to take you down, and sometimes that results in some high hits. And that's what we saw in particular with Aaron Hernandez when they were showing some of those highlight clips. It was like he was leading practically every other game because of his head injury.
Sort of injury. Yeah. They also did introduce Junior Seau, former Charger, former Patriot. He retired, and then once he retired, got a little murky because the NFL was trying to say that, it wasn't a brain problem. That's why he committed suicide. His family came out with a report. Autopsy came out with a report that he did have severe CTE problems, it's always such a murky area for that because the studies really haven't been out yet. I think 10 years maybe on the CTE findings, whatever, Will Smith found it in Concussion, whatever year that movie was set. And that's really when it started to take off. Not many players have submitted their brain for study after they've died. A lot of these people are still pretty young. They haven't died yet. Hopefully they go on to live full lives and stuff. But so the science of it is still out. I feel like they're trying to go, yeah, it was probably CTE, but we can't really say that yet because the science really isn't set in stone. So let's just blame it on he was gay. He took Toradol one time in college.
Dre and I have done like a good segment on kind of head injuries and where that has led to in sports or some of the results that stem from that. Unfortunately, CTE is one of those tough things because you really can't diagnose it until after a guy is already passed. And that's why they were able to find some of it in Junior Seau and Aaron Hernandez post his death. And it's hard to say how much of an effect it really has on a person, whether it comes to just like how they act, because it did seem like there was a slow build of events that kind of led to Aaron Hernandez leading to the life he eventually led. Mm-hmm. One of the factors they did attribute to that I did kind of find interesting, and I could kind of understand this as well when you do hang with like a little bit of a bad crowd, is they mentioned where he was drafted. And not that he was necessarily drafted to the Patriots being a bad thing from an organizational standpoint, but being from a geographic standpoint, because he's from Connecticut. Connecticut's where all his friends of shadier repute happen to live. And that may have been a contributing factor towards him eventually leading more into that crime lifestyle, that fake gangster lifestyles with that semi-pro player put it. What factor do you think that had?
It probably created a big factor because, granted, this did happen in the off season, so it could have still happened, but he probably wouldn't have had those connections as tight as they were if he was drafted, say, San Diego, Oakland, LA, Seattle, on the complete opposite side of the country, where he can't just drive an hour or 2 hours back home. It's, I think it's a 5.5 hour flight from coast to coast. So the connections could have still been there, but I don't feel like they would have been as tight. They wouldn't have been as close. They wouldn't have had such easy access to hang out with each other, get into all these issues.
We'll probably break this down more like when we do the final recap of the whole show. But right now, if you had to say what factors rank are the reason that Aaron Hernandez ended up how he did, because right now, if I'm going down the list, it's probably CTE 1, his friends 2, then 3, I would probably mix in the domestic violence he saw in the household. And then for me, the hidden sexuality thing is probably dead last.
Yeah, so I would probably keep the 2 bottom ones the same, but I might switch the CTE and the home or the friend, the shady friends, because even if he was of clear mind, he probably would have still been hanging out with those people. He probably would have gotten round up into that lifestyle. But I can't put it fully on the CTE first, because if he he could have still had these same problems and been in, like I said, on the complete opposite side, San Diego, Oakland, San Francisco, Seattle, and still had the brain issues, CTE issues, and not necessarily done this. So I'm going to put it more on the availability to hang out with those shady people.
I mean, clearly Urban Meyer and Hubba Bubba or Bubblicious is a 1A. But
it's definitely Hubba Bubba's fault, because if anybody who eats, sorry, Hubba Bubba, hopefully you still sponsor our podcast after this. Probably not, but Hubba Bubba cotton candy is got to be the worst gum ever. Any cotton candy flavored gum is just terrible.
All right. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. So, second episode in the books. This is probably the most frustrating episode of the 2 for me, just, based off 2, because I do feel like this one took more leaps than it needed to, try to tie threads that weren't necessarily there. That kind of frustrated me from a viewer standpoint. I guess we'll see if they can redeem themselves in the 3rd episode, but my hopes aren't exactly high, because it does seem like they're just trying to sensationalize some stuff that doesn't need to be sensationalized.
Yeah, just
do you have any closing words before we close out this one?
No, not really. I'm kind of hoping to see, because I know they did examine his brain for CTE and everything like that. So I kind of hope that they show that end more than anything else really in this last episode. But I guess only time can tell for us.
All right. Well, we'll be back again with the next episode. We'll probably be posting it sometime soon here. Either way, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. What was the main reason you felt that Aaron Hernandez snapped? Break down in the comment section. We'll like to hear back from our listeners on this one. Either way, we'll see you next time, guys.
See ya.